Well, thanks for joining us, gals. I want really quickly to just jump right into some stuff. So before we do, though, let's get a moment to know who you guys are and what you do. So I'm going to start all the way at the end. Introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Hi, guys. I am Tena Dawn. I am a neurolinguistics practitioner, a programming practitioner, a life coach and author, and I have a vision or mission of helping create inner peace to hopefully ripple effect into a more cohesive world peace. So that's
awesome.
Who I am and what I do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right.
I love it. Okay, I'm Dre Olsen. I'm a health and habit coach and owner of Spice Tree Coaching. I work to eradicate fatigue and poverty and anything else that prevents us from enjoying our lives. So,
wonderful.
My name is Kelsey Deetsz. I am the long-term escrow team leader for the amazing Title I. Title I's in the house. I also am the co-owner of Let's Grow Alliance, which is a company that teaches emotional and conversational intelligence together. But I'm also here, just like you are, to be a better leader.
Love it. Hello, my name is Danielle Saltz. I'm the... That's my fan club. Those are my guys.
I found them. They're right there.
So I'm the other half of the Let's Grow Alliance with Kelsey, where we teach self-awareness and emotional and conversational intelligence. I also have my own business called Aspire EQ, where I do emotional intelligence and conflict coaching.
Wonderful. Now, I want to take a quick second here. In your booklets, we got their names backwards. And we want to publicly and officially apologize. Their names are correct on the screen. This is Danielle. This is Kelsey. Danielle,
I would
Kelsey.
be Danielle for a day.
Yeah, I'd switch.
What you can do is take your pens right now and draw one arrow to one and then another arrow and then just flip it, you know? Okay, cool. Now that you've done that and now that we've officially apologized, we are so sorry about that, by the way. Our incredible media team actually went in late last night, got all of the things redone so that you were not only with the correct names, but had new slides so that you were in the correct order on stage and everything. So they love you guys, and we appreciate you being here and being a part of this. But we're going to jump into this conversation. I told you about the question we're going to talk about here in a moment, but we're talking about personal culture. So any order, however you want to talk about it, is fine. And while they're answering this, I want you to be thinking about questions for your culture. Whether that's in the workplace, whatever your idea or your place of work looks like, be thinking about questions for them, because right after this, we're going to have runners with microphones, and I want you to ask the next set of questions, okay? So here's the question. How did you discover your core values, and what do they mean to each of you guys?
Do we go like in order?
Any way you want. This is a conversation.
I think that it's a long process and a process that continues to happen for me. Mostly I discover my personal values through what kind of ticks me off. I know that I'm hooked by something that is interfering with a core personal value. So that's how I kind of get to like, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
But it's a journey that happens on the daily.
Yeah, so your core values are dictated by what you realize you didn't like, and that helps know what you did want. Perfect, that's great.
That's probably the easiest way. It's like the question, what do you want for dinner?
Well, I don't want Brussels sprouts.
Exactly. Yeah. What don't you want for dinner is a much easier way to figure out what you stand for. Like, what do you stand for? I don't know, I like nice people, I like fun people, I like outgoing people. Well, what don't you like is a much easier question to figure out what you stand for.
I want spaghetti for dinner, by the way.
Well, I love that you said it's a process. I also believe that our core values are true for our 8-year-old self, as well as something that we could hold true for our 90-year-old self. Yeah. And so it's something that just takes some time to process. And when we know that what we are doing and what we are standing for works in all areas of our lives, then that starts to whittle it down as well.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Definite process.
So I have a funny story for y'all about how I came to find one of my probably strongest core values. And I want y'all to picture for a second, this is fun. We're going to go back, because most of y'all are a little older, and I mean that as a compliment. Let's go back to that time when we would cruise around with our windows down and our music as loud as we could get it. We've been there. We've all been there. I kind of wish it was legal to like do something about it now that I live in a cul-de-sac and people drive too fast. But I was that girl, and I was single and I was dating, and I remember every time I would meet someone new that I kind of liked, right? I had a crush on him. And I'm thankful for this now in hindsight. A guy introduced me to Pink. Pink was his crush. And I was trying to be his crush. And so all of a sudden I started listening to Pink as loud as I could every time I pulled up to his house. Well, where I'm going with this, eventually I fell in love with Pink. I really do like her, by the way. But where I'm going with this is I was constantly changing who I was to make sure that everyone I was around liked me, right? That I was likable by them. And then I got a little bit smarter and I read this book called The Rules. And now this is like a really outdated book about being the perfect housewife, right? It's kind of a 50s era book. And the number one rule, y'all, was be a creature unlike any other. Now, this is, teeny bopper jamming around listening to Heart and whatever Rob Zombie came on that some guy liked. To be a creature unlike any other was impossible for me, right? That seemed, how do you do that, right? All I've ever been is a mirror of everyone around me. And then it became really fun. And the core value that developed from being a creature unlike any other was authenticity, right? What I had learned I was doing was sabotaging myself by trying to be like everyone else, that I wasn't giving them someone to like. I wasn't standing out. I was blending in. In fact, I was fading out. And I really developed my core value of being authentic. And then, of course, like these ladies have said, it took time of being inauthentic at times, right, to please people, for me to really build that into a really solid pillar of who I am. If you were to speak to anybody that knows who I am, they can tell you who I am easily, and you won't get very many variations, because authenticity as a pillar is that solid of one of my core values. But how I came to it wasn't through, going to a seminar and somebody's like, figure out your core values. I wish. That would have been way easier and probably less embarrassing. But I think that that's how we all do it, right? It's a day-to-day practice of evaluating what's working for us and what's not, what feels great and what feels really icky. As I developed authenticity as one of my pillars of value, I found every time I was inauthentic, it felt really icky. So I encourage you all, as you try to discover your core values or refine them, pay attention to your gut. Pay attention to your visceral response, because that does matter a whole lot.
Yeah, so one of the things that I heard, I think, from each of you guys is this idea of the personal growth that takes place when you create a core value set. That for each of you, it was a journey. For each of you, it was a bit of a process of learning about being true to yourself, about being authentic. So let me ask you this. What areas of your life have you truly let be transformed by your core values? Is your core values different from home than work, or does it saturate every area? Do you have certain things that are unique to each space, or how do you guys use your core values within your workplaces and homes?
My core values are the same regardless of where I'm at, and I feel like if I'm living in those core values, then I am being my most authentic self. I feel like it shows up in all those places. A good example that I can give to you is that one of my core values is connection. Mm-hmm. And once recently, maybe very recently, I felt like I didn't have a connection with someone who was important to my life. Mm-hmm. And so I felt a sincere, desperate need to develop it. And so that's how sometimes it'll show up for me.
Yeah, that's great. You just listen to your heart, so to speak. Not to sound too Disney or anything, but you allow yourself to be real with yourself. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Any other thoughts on how you manage core values within your workplace or home, or what the connection, what that looks like?
I had a great conversation with one of our camera crew actually yesterday about this, and it was about relationships, which is one of my specialty areas, and how our partner's core values and our individual core values kind of come together to create our home's values, right? Our system for our kids and our family as a whole. But that doesn't mean that my husband and I have the same exact core values. We don't, right? We kind of blend those together to create our family. And then it's from that, right? I want to call it from that foundation that we're able to, face our fears and take risks and do things because we're solid in who we are and what we stand for. And sure, it's individuals coming together, but I think that that's the same exact concept in any work environment or even a co-collaboration like this, right? We're all coming together with an intention and a purpose, even if we have very different, I think all four of us work in a similar industry and have different core values, right? But we all have the same mission or a similar mission.
Yeah, I think the idea of having separate core values can oftentimes seem like something is against or opposed to something else, right? Well, the way that I perceive my core value must be against you because we have different core values. We must be, each of you working within a similar industry, you probably have different and unique and wonderful ways that you coach people in each of the spaces that you coach and teach and train. And yet, you're all on the same team. It doesn't mean that you're against each other just because you have different methods or core values. So that's great. I really like that. What we're going to do now, we're going to keep this conversation going, but I want to hear from you guys. What are some questions that you have regarding core values? And here's how we're going to do this. I need my mic people to raise their hand. Where are my mic people at? Okay, perfect. I got one right here in the back, one right there in the back. So we've got you covered on either side. But if you have a question, all I ask, no one's going to make you come forward. We're just going to ask if you would be willing to raise your hand, stand up, ask any question you have on culture and work values, core values within the workplace or home or anything like that. So does anyone have a question to get us started with this group of people? Perfect.
It's Carrie.
Just wait. Yes, now try. Okay, yell it nice and super loud. While they, oh wait, I think I hear it now.
Ladies, how and when do you share your core values with the people around you? Like first date, first introduction? You give it a minute?
Or even with your staff and teams. That's another space too.
So how and when do you share your core values?
I feel like you would have to share your core values when the timing was right in a way to justify your decision on something that they don't agree with. If you had to kind of validate why you're feeling the way, and in order to create a boundary, you have to communicate what your core value is. If you just said, sorry, you can't call me past 9, they're not gonna understand, like, well, why? Well, why can't I? Until you said, I have a solid core value of family time. It begins at 6 p.m. Please do not call me after that. Then it makes it a little bit more relatable to, oh, that's why I cannot. You set that boundary, and you cannot ever be able to set a solid boundary without knowing what core value it is around. Yeah. So when you have to maybe validate a boundary is when I would communicate a core value. But we haven't really talked about our core values up here because they are very personal and different.
And I would say I agree, like when there's a misalignment too, because then that's when you're needing to take perspective. Obviously, you don't have the same core values as a lot of different people. And so when there's a misalignment at work or at home, you got to discuss what it is that is driving you versus what's driving them so that you can better understand each other.
Yeah. Dre, did I see that you were raising your hand, or did you have a point there?
No, but I can definitely say.
Okay. I thought I saw you raise your hand like you were ready to answer, so I wanted to make sure I called on you. This is not me throwing you under the bus, I promise. I just want to make sure that you had a chance to share.
No, I actually was just thinking about that, and actually in each of our industries, and I mean, they're very similar, but it's really not about necessarily our core values. It's serving, and it's helping others find theirs. I know in mine, with health coach being part of what I do, a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, I just want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. Mm-hmm. And I have to help them kind of take a step back and be like, well, there's a few proven methods to lose weight. There's meth, there's smoking, there's amputation, and there's starvation. So are you willing to do all of those? And they'll say, well, no. Okay, so then there's something more important than losing weight.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of, it's an interesting thing because a lot of people will just say, they're like, no, all I want is to lose weight. Well, I'm not a meth dealer or what, I don't even know what that is. And so I can't possibly help in that way. So I'm not a weight loss coach, I'm a health coach.
Yeah.
And just helping people understand what it is that they're wanting, it creates a good environment for what we do.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, to even kind of adding on to your point, is what you are pointing people to is at the beginning, sometimes core values can be really helpful up front, right? Mm-hmm. Because it can save you from some really difficult conversations down the line. There are going to have to be those things you have to communicate. But I mean, I've walked into businesses and I've seen people that, man, more and more it seems like recently, the moment you walk in, big on the wall, this is who we are, this is what we believe. And even like Luke was sharing earlier, like, does your team have the passion to share it with the same heart? I think if we can get to that place where it's one of the first things we do, then on down the line, we can correct behaviors that don't line up with the value that we're trying to put forward. So I think that's great. Also good to know you're not a meth dealer. I'm super happy about that.
I know. I hope that didn't disappoint anyone. But
I've never heard anybody tell me there's proven ways to lose weight, meth, amputation, cigarettes. And
it's true. You will weigh less after losing a leg. There's no question about that. So it's not just weight loss.
So you learned another thing today. Losing a leg will lose weight. Awesome. All right, other questions from the audience here? Wonderful. Right up front, I saw this one first, and then we'll go to you next.
I'm just curious how you guys keep the momentum or self-motivation around reminding yourself of what your core values are. Like just some of the things that you guys do to do that.
That's good.
I think,
Good question.
can I speak on that?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I love that question because sometimes, right, it feels easy to flounder or falter from it. And then there are moments, right? We live in a real world that's moving, right? We've got constant moving parts. And if you're in this room, it's very likely that you have a lot of moving things going on around you all the time, right? People in and out, and you're interacting. And it's kind of throughout those interactions that I personally, like, I take reminders from that. And I'll answer this because it was great. We were at lunch, all of us actually, the first coach lunch meeting, and I said, guys, I gotta go. I'm sorry, I left early, and I told them right then and there one of my core values, right? It was not necessarily a core value, but it is. To be authentic to myself, I'm a really good mom, or I'd like to think I am, right? I judge myself all the time, but I'd like to think I'm a good mom, and so that's a high priority, right? So when the opportunity came, and I call it an opportunity, to have lunch with these ladies, and then it was going a little over the time, I had to, right, tell them, hey, this is my priority, so in moments when, I want to say when it's vulnerable, right? Those are the moments that we were reminded. It also helps to reflect on that, much like, screaming back at yourself in the mirror with lots of excitement. If you just remind yourself of what they are and why, right? And if you do a little bit of journaling on that or whatever, you can do lots of daily affirmations. You don't even need it daily, right? Just awareness of what they are will start to lead to more thoughts of how this plugs in and is accurate in alignment, or this isn't in alignment. Just being aware, I think, is a really good answer to that question. Being aware will remind you all the time because you'll just see what fits and what doesn't with your values.
Yeah. Anyone else? Things on how we keep the momentum of our core values going.
So I really liked it when Luke said that language matters. I probably have so many journal pages full of different words trying to identify the specific value and what those words specifically mean to me. So one of the ways that I remind myself is I'm always just thinking about it and writing words down that are meaningful to me, because language does matter. And so when I say I have a value of connection and I'm certain in that, that means I have written words that are similar to that down a million different times. So that's a good practice for me. Plus, whenever I get triggered,
It's all about emotion.
So I'm triggered, my emotions are out of whack here, and there's a reason, and it's probably because one of my core values is not being met. Which one is it? I need to think about it.
Yeah. I think that the momentum does come from being self-aware that you are having feelings. Like, ooh, I like this, or ooh, this feels bad. Or like, why am I sad right now? Like, what is making me so angry? What's making me so anxious? You keep the momentum going by noticing that and doing the work on that. Like, if I notice right now that I'm uncomfortable, I can be like, why am I so uncomfortable? And it's this mic belt, because I was wearing a dress today. But that's why I'm a little bit uncomfortable, and it takes me a minute. But if I notice that I am getting angry, I'm like, why am I getting angry? Like, why do I want to do this with my hands? Like, oh, it's because my core value of peace is not being met, because those two people are talking very loudly, and I can tell that they're uncomfortable, so that makes me uncomfortable. And just keeping the momentum, like, it's not about them, it's about me. One of my core values is getting a little bit stepped on, so I'm going to do the work on sticking in my core value and living in it and trying the best that I can to stay authentic to who I am. It's actually a long process. We're exhausted at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I love even thinking of momentum takes pause. Like what you're all saying, I mean, it takes that moment, and it's amazing how often we try to accomplish great things without oxygenating our brain. And if we just take that pause and take a breath and just let ourselves process what we're doing, why we're doing it, all of those things, then yeah, we can continue to live authentically and live within our core values.
I have a good example. The other day I sat in a very trusted friend's office, and I got a notification on my phone, and it sent me into anger just like in a hot second. I'm like, oh, friend, I am hooked by an emotion. I need to go take a walk for a sec, because I got to figure out why before I respond to this.
There you go. I think a lot of people could benefit from that kind of response. Excuse me, I am hooked by emotion.
Oh, friend,
I will
sorry.
be taking a walk.
I have to stop our conversation
I'm gonna
for just a minute.
I'm going to take a mental health walk, and I'll be back,
I'll be right
as long as that takes, actually.
Yeah.
No, but one of the things that I think was consistent throughout your answers was the term of maybe consistency with momentum, right? Each of you had something that you mentioned to some degree, and I don't want to misrepresent any of your statements, but I felt like there was some degree of like, what I do to keep momentum is I keep reminding myself. I keep talking about it, I keep thinking about it, and yes, I have space as well, because how many of you guys know you cannot lead out of an empty well? If your battery for your brain or your body is drained, you will not be a healthy leader, right? So breaks and rest is important, but the key, I think, main item I saw is that core values momentum is driven by a consistency in every aspect of our life, especially even when it's not easy. When you're tempted to maybe, let's say, compromise on your core value, in those moments of temptation of compromising, if we can remain consistent in our core values, we will build the strength and the momentum of those even further. So thank you for that question. That was a great question. All right, now I had one right here in the middle, and then I'll go, I think I might have saw a hand over here next. So right here in the middle.
So,
Oh, it was there and gone. Just go again. Try again.
how do you,
Maybe.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear.
I can yell, that works. How do you help the culture of your workplace when you aren't a leader? You are just a coworker when you're there. How do you help them through your own personal culture, through theirs? How do you help build that?
Yeah. Let me ask the question in the mic so that the recording has it as well, and then I'll let you guys answer it, okay? Sure. I'm not trying to cut anyone off. So basically your question, to reiterate it, to make sure it's stated, was how do you influence culture and core values if you're not in charge? Is that a fair representation of that? All right, ladies, what do you think?
I'd be happy to speak on this.
I know, we have
and then
so
when y'all
much.
can jump. I was gonna say, when y'all can
There's like an eagerness. Everyone's like, whose turn?
So this is really fun for me because my husband was previously in a position that wasn't leadership, and he is a really big buy-in person, right? He wants to have a lot of buy-in. He wants to have a ripple effect. He wants to make a difference. And the biggest way that we can make a difference when we are not in a place of leadership is to still be a leader, right? You may not have a paper that says you can lead people, but you have a head and a heart that says you can, okay? You can all lead people no matter what the paper says, okay? No matter what your paycheck says. You can be a leader by leading by example. I think it's really important, and one of the topics I really wanted to cover while up here was that we need to, leave space for compassion and respect and honoring our own core values, but everyone else is around us. The idea is, right, hopefully your company that you work with has some core values or some pillars of value. And by participating, right, and being a beacon that shines really brightly and says, I am part of this company and I am aligning with their values, by setting the example, other people, here's something fascinating about humans, and I'll be really fast, is we actually have to mirror each other, right, to create comfort and cohesion. We actually do mirror each other. It's really cool. So if you stay strong, right, with an intention of being that leader, of setting that example, of meeting the pillars of the company really, really well, the other people are inevitably going to come up to that level to some degree naturally, because humans want cohesion.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I think it has to,
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
This is so hard.
Go ahead.
You're so polite. I love it. You guys are like, oh, it's you, it's fine.
Just talk.
Go ahead. Okay, I'll go ahead. I'll go. I really think that because self-awareness is such an important part for me to understand what my core values are and how they reflect on the core values of the organization, even if I wasn't a leader in the organization that I work for, I would still be self-aware, trying to be self-aware and connecting with my own core values. And when you have your core values and self-awareness intact, you can influence others. And leadership is influence, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, how many of you guys all have somebody at your work that when you see that they're there, or when you see their smile when you walk in the building, it changes your day, right? I'm sure we all have people like that, right? We also have work, just like Luke was mentioning earlier, we've all encountered people that you walk in the building and they have the ability just to crush your mood. Like, oh man, they're here today. I could have sworn they weren't scheduled forever, I hoped. But we understand that influence doesn't just come from a title, right? And we have the ability to positively impact all of our workplaces simply by the attitude that we bring, the respect that we show, and the love and care that we give the people around us. All right, we have time for just one more quick question, and then we got to be done. So, I know it's already gone. Right over here up front. Can we get him a mic? We're going to try this mic. I have faith in this one. I've given up hope on the other one completely.
So if we come up, there we go. So if we come up with core values, we put them on our wall. This is at a workplace or maybe a home. What's the next step? What are strategies to revisit that, inculcate the core values, and really implement them in the workplace or a home?
It's a great question. Ladies, what are your guys' thoughts?
I know in my work, I tell people I can be your coach one day and then we don't talk again for 7 days. And so to make reminders, I love to help people create anchors in their environment and to create things that connect to all of the different senses. And to just, because sometimes it'll be a smell, a sight, a taste, a touch, any of those kinds of things that you can just connect with what it is that you're going for, your why. And you do that and you'll have more reminders in your environment. Yeah. I hope that helps.
Can you give me an example of implementing, you said engaging your senses. Can you give me some examples of how you would engage your senses with your core values?
Absolutely. So, I mean, depending on the person, we all have a sensory response that is stronger than others. And so for some people, like a smell will take them to a certain place. Like the smell of baking bread takes them to like remembering their mother, or the smell of an essential oil takes them to a yoga class, or whatever it is, you'll have a smell that takes you there. For some people, a visual of, I know, like a picture of a phoenix or something that's a changing creature. Even a picture of them as a little kid, reminding them to simplify, or whatever it is. Yeah. I don't know. I know the textiles. A lot like when it comes to touch, like certain materials can just bring kind of a remembrance of what it is you do, why you do it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What are some other ways you guys would implement core values? I think you've got
I have a great example for this, actually. So you said, how can, these sensory things be connected to a core value? This is so funny. I was telling my husband this story last night. I won't tell you the whole story, but make it really short and sweet. One day I dressed up. I was wearing blue jeans and pearls. I had a 16-year-old older sister. I was probably 12. And she goes, "You can't wear blue jeans and pearls together." Okay, every time I see pearls now, I think of authenticity. Okay, so that's the answer to how do you link something sensory to, right? So that's a visual aid in linking to my core value of being authentic. For reminders, though, I think that it's about practice makes perfect, right? So sure, you can write it on the wall, but if you don't look at it, if you don't think about it when you look at it, if you don't have a feeling attached to that, it ain't gonna really change anything in your behavior and your results. So you have to have things, thoughts lead to feelings, that lead to behaviors that lead to results, if you can remember that. So if we think about the thing, we create a feeling about the thing, and that will modify your behavior to get you the result you want. And so when you're developing your core values and putting them on the wall or creating reminders, the thought, the feeling is really, really, really imperative.
Yeah. What about you, ladies? Any ways that you implement your core values? Maybe the way that you bring your team on board with them?
I think it's kind of just simple in the way that you have to drink the Kool-Aid. Like if you don't believe in it, then you're not going to live it. You have to live it, and you almost have to expect other people to live it and drink the Kool-Aid for it to be really, really successful. If you have one person that's like, "Oh yeah, integrity," and like rolls their eyes, that's your weak link, which Luke was talking about, and they're leaving so much on the table. They're your C team, maybe, that you need to think about that's not drinking the Kool-Aid to be part of your company's core values. They're really about having pride in what you do, and doing a really good job at what you do is by following your company's core values. And if you're just not aligning to them and you're just not loving them and living it authentically you in your company's core values, then that's something you have to think about also, if you belong there or if you don't.
Yeah.
I think also trying to determine what behaviors, what things can you do for each core value that if you do them, you're either living in your core value or you're living outside of your core value. And how do your personal core values match up with your company's core values? And making sure those are in alignment too, as much as you can, because I can't pick two people out in this room that have the same core values as me. So for an organization, I agree with Danny that you have to have it to where people are living it and breathing it and loving it, and hopefully standing in their core values, their own personal core values, why they do it.
Yeah, and as an employee, as an employer, it's not that amazing to expect your team members to live in your core values if they don't align with their personal core values. Like they might be the most awesome computer and data analysts, I have no idea, data analysts ever, but if their core values their personal do not line up with your company, it's just not worth the fight to make that alignment. And that's kind of harsh.
I think it's also really important to practice what you preach, right? I was just listening to this guy talk about safety, and the company preached safety, and right, it was on sticky notes, it was on the wall, it was on the, the mouse pads, it was everywhere, right? Safety first, and then when, right, production was going to be lacking because of a safety concern, the guy's job was threatened. He left, he ended up starting his own company, and he practiced safety, right? Yeah. He set the example. He said, okay, yeah, this loss of production time is gonna kill us, but not literally, right? Yeah. Versus the safety incident. And so I think that it really is about being it, right? You have to lead by example. Be it, show up with it, encourage other people, right? I think that coming with compassion and understanding, but also encouraging, because you can move mountains.
Totally. I mean, we can even show from the speakers we've had this morning, Luke stood on tables with his team, right? He didn't tell people to say that they're sexy and that they're beautiful and that they're competent if he wasn't going to stand on the table himself, right? I know Dusty wouldn't tell someone to go, wrestle a bull unless Dusty was going to do it. Like, I would never listen to the advice of someone who's like, all right, this is how you take on a bull. And then they're like, all right, show me how it's done. They're like, no, I would never. Like, if you don't want to get in with a bull, I don't want to get in a bull. I did a bull one time. I rode on the back of a bull one time in my entire life. And I'll tell you what, I was searching for everybody I could find to tell me how to not die in that moment, right? But I think we all aspire to be leaders who lead by example. I think one of the ways that you're kind of even just saying in this instance is that we lead by example. If you want to implement culture, set up core values, understand who you are, learn about yourself, take the time to figure out what you believe, why you believe it, not just a good idea, but a you idea, right? And then take that and demonstrate it, because you will not duplicate what you do not demonstrate, right? If your culture does not see you demonstrate it, they won't